What is your craziest dealership story that you can tell?
That I can tell?
Some guy's watching this.
Yeah.
He is upset.
And there's no way to save it. Like, it was exploded.
And talk about a pivot moment. Like a couple years ago, everybody was talking EV.
Every time I would bang on these things.
Wow, you have to deal with that every day. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we do. It's just a normal day in a car dealership.
That's amazing. Does that person still work here?
No, he doesn't work anymore. They were like adjusting their glass. They were like, what is that? Is that a real vehicle? And I was like, yeah, that's, you guys don't know? Like, that's all over the internet right now. Okay, welcome everybody today to a very different video than we've ever done on this channel. Thanks to some feedback from the viewers. I've been asked numerous times, can we meet anybody else from the dealership? So today I'm here with a very special guest, and I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Mark Lovelock. I'm the general manager here at Performance Lexus and Toyota, and honored to be the first guest on whatever this video is. That's
whatever
great.
This is.
Thank you.
And that, we don't even know what we're going to call it yet. Maybe it's going to be Coffee with Dustin. Maybe it's going to be just Lexus Talks. However, we are starting today with it.
Yeah,
so.
we're rolling. That's
All right.
great.
So Mark is our general manager here at Performance Lexus. So I'm going to be asking him a little bit of questions. We'll have some, candid talks and see if we can download all the wisdom you have from all of your years.
I thought we wanted a long video. So that'll be a short one.
Okay. So tell everybody how long you've been doing this.
I've been doing this since 2003, 2004. So been at it for a while. It was really my only job out of university. So I kind of got sucked into the car business. My dad was in the business. So I got out of school, started looking for an engineering job, and got pulled into selling cars, which has been all right. Worked out okay. Quite
all right, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, I get to come to work with half decent people, and this actually, it is a great business. We have a lot of fun, and we get to make people happy every day. And although it does have its challenges, it's been a pretty great career, I think.
So to start things off, instead of going through too many years of history and stuff like that, what would be your number one advice for anyone trying to get in this business in any role?
I think you got to have, at heart, you got to have a willingness to serve people. I mean, we talk about it all the time here, as you know, this isn't the car business, this is the customer service business. And, if you don't really have a strong desire to help people, then this can be a grind. So if that's, what floats your boat, then, I mean, this can be, like I said, this can be a lot of fun. You get to work with great product. And I think from a Toyota and Lexus perspective, we've got a great company to work for. They make doing our job a lot easier. But boy, if you don't want to help people, you're in trouble, because there can be some long days.
I do find that, like, in any job, there's so many things that are tough that can take your energy up. And I find if you do like people, instead of draining your battery, it seems to fill it. Like when I'm having like a rough day, I'm usually buried in paperwork. And if I'm having a pretty good day, it's usually because I'm out there talking to people, and even if it's staff or, guests of ours, it seems to kind of give me an extra gear.
Yeah, 100%. You got to love it. And because it can go either way there. It can really take it away from you if you're not in the right space, or you don't have that right mindset, or like you said, it can really recharge you and fill you up. Some of the best days that I think I have, and I'm sure you're the same, are the days when either we've turned a tough situation from bad to good, or we've really upped the ante and turned a good situation into something that's been great for a guest and really made a moment for them. So.
Yeah, I try to hold on to those really good ones.
Some days you need them.
Sometimes you need them, yeah. And sometimes when I look back, a lot of them started as a bad moment, right? Like some of my favorite guests, who I won't name them because they do watch the channel, are ones that I remember it started off actually on the wrong foot. And then we were able to sort of come to an agreement or learn from each other or whatever. And then now, like, these are some guys that I go for like lunch with sometimes because of we turned it around so well.
Yeah, you're not to blow sunshine or anything like that, but that's something that you're really good at, kind of empathizing and understanding, and then being able to flip that around for guests. And I mean, that's another thing we talk about all the time. We're not going to, ever be perfect. We're not going to stop making mistakes. Things are going to go wrong. It's what happens after that, how you react to it. Do you own it? Do you take responsibility? Do you, make sure that you take the right steps to make it right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do, then, and I mean, in those the right cases, you can go just a little further, sometimes a lot further than what the guest is expecting. And it, can turn something into, from a negative into a real peak, into a real exciting thing for people. And that's what they end up remembering, and that's what endears you to them. And that's what makes that kind of lasting mark. So
that was one of the Lexus lessons I got, was like, they said that if everything goes smoothly, you have a good chance that they'll come back. But if things go wrong and then you make it right, it's like a 90% chance that they are like a guest for life, they say. So I used to be really like afraid of those things going wrong, especially when I was like junior, and I didn't even have like a general manager at one point. And I was like, the world is on fire. I got the nickname Bambi that year because I was just running around like crazy. But after I came over that hurdle, now when I see a situation arise, and sometimes like salespeople will get all worked up, or service people get really worked up, and like I'll just be calm about it because I know like we're gonna fix this, and if we do it the right way, it's actually pretty exciting to be able to like capture that guest for life, right?
100%. When you can look at it, when you see enough of them, and you know that it's not bad, it's actually an opportunity for you, and especially as a salesperson. I mean, what better opportunity than to grab a guest for life by doing something great and solving a problem. Obviously there's other ways to do it, and it's not how we want to get it done all the time. But yeah, when you start to do it long enough, you look at those things as opportunities. And yeah, you kind of look forward to solving the problem, especially, like I said, if you have the right mindset. So that's why that's a big one for me.
What do you think? I've never asked you this before. A lot of times when people are getting into the car business, they think like previous car knowledge or passion is like a necessity. What do you think of that?
I actually always ask people why they want to get into the car business if I'm interviewing them and they're new or have always in the past. And immediately following that question is, you can't say it's because you like cars, and you can't say it's because you like people. Yeah. Because those are the first two things that people say. So I think, people have a inherent interest in cars. It's great. But it's not enough to carry you through at least success in this business. It's, I've met a lot of people that can regurgitate a lot of facts about cars because they love it. That's a passion. That's what they do. But they couldn't create a guest experience to save their life, and ultimately end up, failing. And they find out that the sales part of it just isn't for them.
That's interesting. What was the Danny Meyer book? What did they call that equation?
It was being, I think, a 51%er, setting the table by Danny Meyer. Yeah, being a 51%er, I think was the term that he used. And it was, you have to be at least 51% in for customer service. The other 49, if it's, you can be the most, the sharpest or the most capable, or, have all the other skills. But if you're not at least 51% caring about customer service or caring about, being able to serve other people, they weren't having you. Yeah.
I remember that book. We have a book club here at the dealership that we sometimes will just, group of people will sort of pick a book, read a chapter every week, and then meet together. And the Danny Meyer one was really interesting because of not only like what he did for restaurants, but also how he hired people and trained them. I thought was super interesting. Some of the traits that, like, as someone who interviews people, and it's not like we were ever trained to interview, like a couple things here and there. It was like kind of cool to think of things outside of just like, sell me this pencil. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. It really did start to kind of methodize or give you a process for how you look at people. And, again, the boxes that you're trying to check off when, there's lots of people that can interview well. And I mean, as well as I do, trying to sort through the people that interview well from the people that are genuinely going to be good long-term for your company. That's a tough gig, but having that framework and the understanding that, he was able to provide, and, companies like Disney have been gracious enough to share their framework. And that really helped because, you're right. The car business is a lot of things. Good at training is not necessarily or hasn't traditionally been one of them. So it was the same way. Nobody taught me, nobody sat me down and said, hey, this is what you should do, how you should find people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going through books like that was a big deal and really, really helpful. So
I think for me, the car business has sort of changed in terms of what I like about it or what I love about it. I remember at first it was all about the cars. Like I loved Toyota as a brand. I loved the mechanical behind it. And then transitioned over to like, I actually fell in love with like the guest experience. And then going into management, I fell in love with like the coaching and like the staff. And even now I find like, it's not like it gets boring. There's never a boring day here, but you know, as things start to get to be more of a pattern, and then all of a sudden it's September and there's new cars coming out and you're like, oh, there's this brand new TX last year or the redesign, like when the RCF or GSF came out and like, you're like, oh, things were getting like, you know, just to be like a normal everyday. And then all of a sudden it's like having a brand that just drops like a birthday present on your lap. And you're like, oh, now I get to be excited about this. There's usually training. It sometimes introduces new guests to us, which I think is really fun.
Yeah, 100%. I think, you know, especially for you and, you know, with the vehicles that you have and that passion built into your lifestyle, it is nice to have kind of a front row seat to those new toys that come out. And to me, that is just, it's a bonus for what we do, getting to experience them, to see them, to get an inside track on them, to get more education on them than, you know, the average person would, although I think you can pretty well find anything on online that we're going to have access to. But yeah, that is a nice little, you know, kind of cherry on the sundae or icing on the cake if you ate cherries.
Which I don't.
Which you don't. So, yeah, I think that's, it is always nice to have that hook and that re-engagement to come in. So, but I think I would feel the same way, that I look at that as a bonus, you know, rather than kind of the whole thing that I'm looking for.
Gotcha.
But I think it's why a lot of people start.
Yeah. And it still gives you a little bit of that. Yeah. Icing on the cake type thing.
Yeah. 100%.
So with that said, let's talk a little bit about where you've been in terms of dealerships, starting at a young age to now you're quite older age. What would it be?
Started at KW Kia. It was one of the first Kia franchises in Canada. It was attached to Steve Shear Pontiac Buick way back when, which was where my dad worked, and they had a really good, well-run operation there. My dad did a lot of used cars for them, and
what year was that, by the way?
So that would have been through high school for me. I worked in, you know, in detail and in parts, and did you know, lot work and stuff like that, and so that would have been, you know, going back into the late 90s, if you were alive then.
Barely.
Just.
Yeah, just.
Yeah.
Because I remember you telling the story about Kia, and it was when we were going through like theatrical sales training, like teaching people to really like sell the sizzle. And you explained how you sold Kias in the early 2000s or whatever.
Yeah, that was, you had to sell, man. And because nobody knew what the brand was or why they should be looking at it. You know, it wasn't established in any way, shape, or form. And you know, those first cars, they were not designed and built for North America, or at least they were learning how to design and build things for North America. And you know, I think the Korean companies went through the same things that the Japanese companies went through. They brought over a car and they, you know, watched it fail, and then they learned lessons and they went back and they made it better. And you know, with every iteration, it got better and better. But yeah, those first Cephias and Sportages that rolled off the transport truck were a challenge to sell. But then to their credit, I mean, and that's one of the things I still have a bit of a soft spot for the brand. They got a lot better very, very quickly. I think they did it faster than the Japanese brands did. You know, granted, they had their example to follow, and they were doing it, you know, decades after. But
when you look at that brand now, like I got passed by, I don't know which one it is, but it's the new sport line with the N. And I remember like thinking to myself, like, who hurt you? Like you guys came back, like you've been going to the gym. That company and Genesis is the same. It's like no one can argue that Genesis isn't a classy brand now. Where they definitely, like years ago when it first came out, when it was a sub brand, people would say that. But explain how you used to sell the Kia. There was like something you used to do, the theatrical thing.
Well, there was a number of different things, but I remember one of them was the headlights were made of Lexan, I think, at the time, and they were marketed as you couldn't shatter them. And so every time I would bang on these things just to prove that, these were a quality product and that they could actually take a little bit of a beating. And sold me some vehicles. So
and you never broke one?
No.
Okay.
No, never broke one.
I'd be so afraid to do that now just because a headlight costs like $10,000, it seems. So
I got all kinds of faith in the product, but man, if something went wrong,
if your ring was just happened to be slid down a little bit or something,
that would be bad. But I think those challenges helped turn me into a half decent salesperson, and I'm very, very thankful for kind of starting there. So.
Yeah, and then from there, where did you go?
From there, it's funny. I had a very brief stint in my hometown at a Chevrolet and Cadillac store, and worked. It was in kind of a Brantford institution. It had been there, for 90 plus years or something like that, and had a very brief stint there, and then went to a big used car operation, Strickland's in Stratford. It was one of those kind of great used car outlets. There's a couple of them here in Ontario, where they were just way bigger than they should be. I mean, we were selling hundreds of vehicles every month out of Stratford, Ontario. Mm-hmm. That shouldn't happen, for anybody that knows Stratford. So really, really well run operation, and then Strickland's opened Stratford Toyota, which I was lucky enough to be a part of. That went really, really well. Again, obviously the Toyota brand is excellent, so that went really well. And then Strickland's ended up buying the GM store that I worked at in my hometown, and
cool.
And then so I got to go back there and work at that store for 6 years, and kind of try to make the effect, or have the effect that I really didn't get to have the first time around. And then this opportunity came around. I happened to kind of see it. It was brought to my attention, and the opportunity to come back to Toyota, but moreover to get the Lexus brand as well was too good to be true. And I mean, I drive an hour every day to come to work, but to have these two brands to work with is well worth it. The people are, like I said, half decent as well, so makes it pretty fun.
What was that transition from the previous experience to coming into Lexus Toyota? Obviously, you had something in your mind of what it was going to be like. Was it like that, or was it totally different?
I think for the most part, it was what I was expecting. With the exception of the workload, having the two stores was a lot more challenging than I thought it would. Thought it would be. I thought there's a connection between Lexus and Toyota. I thought there would be some kind of some more synergies there, some more a little bit of less duplication than there really is. But I spend a lot of my day flip flopping back and forth in whether it's programs or reading the same emails just to make sure that everything's the same. But aside from that, I think world-class brands, and the auto group that we work for is another thing that really grabbed my attention when I started looking through this, and what Performance has done, where they started, how they're building, and then when I got to finally meet some of the people through my interviews, getting to know the executive team a little bit, that was the clincher for me. So,
yeah, I remember even me coming on to Performance Auto Group, it was sort of like looked at in the community as like the big leagues. Yeah. So my goal was just to like end up at Toyota, and then from there working over to Lexus. And that's something I tell people a lot too. It's like, even though the two brands share so many things in terms of like the parent company, it is a little bit, I found anyway, when dealing with the guests, it was a little bit different of a mindset. Like you do have to level up a little bit, but doable for sure. Like the skills you can learn at one do translate a little bit to the next one.
I think so, for sure. I think the expectation is naturally higher with Lexus. Doesn't mean that you can't, work to that same level at Toyota. And, If you do, I think you're going to sell a lot of Toyotas. But yeah, I think that expectation is naturally higher with Lexus from a product perspective, from an experience perspective, from an interaction, I mean, to be able to have a conversation and, listen and ask questions and, all the things that you're very good at, that you don't necessarily have to do that in a volume brand, but the expectation is certainly there in the luxury world.
If there was a brand, you can inside our group or outside of our group, for you to move to, like drop of a hat, what would be like one that would maybe interest you in terms of their values or product?
It's a tough question. I do really like, we've talked about this a great deal. I do really like the challenges that the luxury world presents. I think that you really do have to be at the top of your game to succeed in this business or this side of the business. I've never worked for a German company before. I think that would be interesting, just to see what their take on the industry is, what their take on customer service is, what their take on, you can obviously look at design and language and, build stuff like that, but just what their take on how you deliver a great car to a discerning guest, I think would be interesting to find out.
That's a cool thing to explore, because it probably is different in a lot of ways. I think focus of some of those brands sometimes is different than the focus of Lexus for sure. But there's no doubt, like, all make a great product. If you look at the luxury lineup, the luxury industry right now, coming from the Germans or Asia or North America, they're all making amazing cars. And yeah, you could put them all against each other, and like maybe there's a leg up on some things like performance with certain brands or interior on certain brands, but versus what was around 20 years ago, like huge difference. Yeah.
What would you check? Cause you're like, I think shower in the
yeah,
Lexus.
I was like born in Lexus, with a Lexus tattoo on my back. There is one brand I would do. And it's because it shares a lot of the same values, reliability wise and craftsmanship wise, and it's Porsche. But I wouldn't do it because it's not owned by Performance Auto Group, and so owners,
good
if
save.
You're watching,
good save.
Maybe buy that Porsche dealership if you ever see it for sale. But that's the only other brand. But even with that, I think there's a lot of things I would miss about the Lexus values, and some of that was instilled with me even working at the factory, because I remember learning about how much attention goes into each bolt and how many times it's checked, and all of these mindset based things like Kaizen and Takumi and stuff, and then coming to the dealership and being like, oh, you guys do that for
That's
people?
The same.
Yeah, you guys do that for people too? like what? So I just don't see how someone could convince me otherwise, but I'm sure those brands have those things as well. But there's a reason why even hospitals study the Toyota way, right? Because of it's really down pat. Yeah,
it's locked up tight. And I mean, for anybody that hasn't researched how much the Toyota way and their process literally changed the world. Like it's considered, as far as manufacturing is concerned and design is concerned, I mean, it's between what they did and, what Henry Ford did, inventing the assembly line. Yeah, it's 1 and 2 there, and I wouldn't want to live on the difference.
Oh, really?
So as much as the assembly line changed the world, the Toyota way and lean manufacturing and, everything that it brought into play and again, that's been spread across all manufacturing, just like the assembly line has. It's not just, unique to automotive.
I wish we had a movie like Ford versus Ferrari, but for Lexus and Toyota.
I think it would be tremendously boring.
Yeah.
Like the original Toyota story, from moving from the loom works, the automatic loom works, into automotive is a really cool, really cool story. There's a book that my old bosses gave me called Quest for the Dawn, which is like a fictionalized telling of I guess a story of how that all came to pass.
For anybody who hasn't, what's your best like summary of what happened there? Because sometimes I tell it, I probably butcher it a little bit sometimes, but.
So I mean, the Toyota family was quite happy moving down the fabrication line, and they were, very successful doing it. One of the grandfathers invented like the automatic loom or the self reloading. I can't remember how it worked, but they were a tremendously successful company, and it was one of the I think it was maybe the grandson of the gentleman that invented the automatic loom. Just turned out to like cars, and at the time there was zero automotive industry in Japan. Everything was imported, and so he and like a small group of engineers started at night. They had a corner of the shop. I think at first they started doing it in secret, if memory serves, and just started ripping down cars and trying to figure out how to build these things. And that turned into a little bit more study, but they were doing full days works at the loom works, and then staying all night tearing down cars. And then that turned into a little bit of design, and that turned into trips to the US to kind of start to figure things out. And then then they started slowly building vehicles, and then that went through into World War II, and really put a pause on things, and then they kind of had to start back up again. And then the Toyota Way, I mean, all of that was all an offshoot of having little to no resources and no, kind of no systems set up after the war, and trying to figure out how they're going to build cars now.
Wow.
So you couldn't have waste. Like that's where that's where the Muda came from. Yeah. You couldn't have, you didn't have space for warehouses and stuff like that. So you had to have just in time delivery. And, so all of those things kind of came out of the necessity of, there was barely an established industry. Then that was knocked to the ground, and, it was all trying to maximize, everything that they possibly had, all the resources, all the time, all the space. And that turned into, pretty good way to design and build vehicles. So, or it turns out anything really.
Yeah. And I think I forgot about that part of the pressure they had to make it work with things like Muda and resources and stuff. But I remember that first story with the textile, because at the factory when I worked there, it rang so true, where how it was that one son found a way for that loom to stop when the fibers would like get sort of mixed up or whatever. And it was a quality control thing. And then they took that into the cars. And it was one of the reasons why on the assembly line, if you see something wrong, you can stop the assembly line and no one gets mad. Yeah. Which I heard at other manufacturers, it's like, you're stopping the assembly line. You know how much money you're wasting right now? Yeah. But for them, they were like, yeah, we're gonna fix like everything that comes through. So how do you not have a great product after that?
Yeah. And I think not only having the foresight and the intelligence to build a system like that, but the fortitude to stick with it, because it's not easy to do. Yeah. You can't, we do the same things on a much smaller scale here, obviously. And, it's great to have the intention, but seeing it through to the point where it's, not only gospel now, but it's gospel generations down the line, that people are still sticking with it, that, some kid that worked at a factory here in Canada is doing the same thing that they outlaid, in the 70s or whenever they were working through the initial design of that process. So, it's
that is wild to think about. I think being in a management position, like to see a company do that, I'm like, how do you, I can't like to instill that, because we have turnover sometimes, and even trying to inject what we've learned over the last 5 years, especially with COVID and stuff like that, into the new people. I mean, even that's like, I can tell them and show them a presentation, but like to have them live it and breathe it every single day is hard, especially with all the other stuff you have to learn. Right. Yeah. So whenever I see a brand do that, I'm like, wow, you guys have figured it out, and it's taken years, obviously, but
and it really does put into perspective. You look at that, you look at companies like Disney, and they're managing 60,000 people, and we're like, how do we make these 30 people do what we want them to do?
And you think too, like, because obviously sometimes there's frustrations with that, but we can assume company like Disney didn't approach that being like, oh, why aren't they doing what I want them to do, right? And same with companies.
I would hope they come up with something better than that.
But sometimes we do that, right?
Yeah,
sometimes. We talked about it today.
Mostly you.
Yeah, mostly me. But it's interesting to think of. Okay, so what is your craziest dealership story that you can tell?
That I can tell?
That you can tell.
I think the craziest was taking a car. This was actually I didn't drive it. I was there, but one of our managers took a car for an appraisal, and it's common practice. You walk around the car, you check it out as best you can, and the 10 minutes that you're afforded to do so, and then you take it out on a quick drive. I drive 3 kilometers. That's my process. I want to make sure that the odometer turns and that it turns in kilometers. So you take the car for a little drive, check the brakes, all that kind of stuff. Well, this car, the engine literally exploded, like shot pieces out of the front of the engine through the front of the car and left the manager stranded. And how you come back from a short drive and explain that to a guest. Now, fortunately, memory serves, it wasn't a very expensive car, but we, what do you say? It wasn't me. Like you can't. There's no way to get around it, and there's no way to save it. Like it was exploded. Yeah. So they, those guests felt awful. They came in with a car, and then they left with no car. Now we worked it all out with them, obviously, but that was unfortunate.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a wild one. It's big breakable objects. I mean, a lot of the stories around a dealership are to do with, things breaking or accidents happening because there's so many moving things all the time and usually short spaces. Yeah. I used to get a lot more stressed about like fender benders than I do now, or dents or dings, because everything could be fixed. So I learned that lesson. Unfortunately, I was on the the giving end of a couple of accidents, especially when I was younger, moving cars around in detail, and I took bent the door off of one. It was like an old Caprice wagon, I don't know if you would remember, but had like the wood paneling down the sides, and I just Tommy Boy'd it right off. Oh wow! And then I scraped a pickup truck going into a detail bay, like all down the side. And actually, I don't even know if I told my dad about this one, but I was also backing out one of those conversion vans out of the detail bay. And the person that was working with me didn't raise the door quite high enough. And we the door.
The door. Well, yeah, we did take out the door, but we also scraped the whole roof of the top of that van. So somewhere I'm not even sure if I brought that to anyone's attention, to be honest with you.
It was like, have a good night.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad about now, but...
some guy's watching this. Yeah. He is upset. I knew I wasn't crazy.
No.
I know. I was thinking like what story I would tell, because there really is so many. Like if you hang around a couple car people, whether it's previous employees or current employees, people will bring up, oh, remember that one time? And you're always like, wow, like, yeah, I totally forgot that happened because of, what we've been dealing with since then.
Yeah, it does get a little bit, it just gets buried under the next one, and they tend not to stop.
It does make you, I don't know about you, but for me, it makes me one of the more interesting people at a party to tell these stories. Because people are like, wow, you have to deal with that every day. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we do. It's just a normal day in a car dealership.
That's funny. I don't think I've ever thought about it.
Yeah. There was this one that I thought of that I haven't thought about or talked about in a long time. But I remember when I first started, this gentleman took a couple on a test drive. And one of the things he would do, he would drive, probably same as you mentioned, like a couple kilometers away. And there was a church parking lot. So he stopped at the church parking lot, did the thing where you get out and you walk around the car and, frame it up, how do you think the angles? And then when they went to come back, he put the key in and it wouldn't start. So he decided to walk back with the guests to the dealership. So for some reason, the guests were really cool with this. And they get all the way back and, he was explaining like the car wouldn't start. He got to boost it. He's like, giving me the key. Okay, I need you to go boost this car. And And I'm going to sit down on the gas and go over pricing. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me more. Like, did it crank? Did it click? He's like, no, the key wouldn't even turn. And I remember looking down and seeing the key that he handed me wasn't the key to the car. It was like for a Yaris, and he was driving like a Corolla. And he reaches in his other pocket. He was trying the wrong key. And they walked all the way back because he had the wrong key in his pocket.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a trade-in in his one pocket and the key to the car's in the other.
That's amazing. Does that person still work here?
No, he doesn't work here anymore.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
Yeah, I wouldn't tell any stories to you about people who do work here still, just in case. I don't want to put you in that awkward position.
Taking notes.
Yeah. Everybody down there right now is like, what are they talking about up there? They're going to be fast forwarding to see if we bring up their names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good catch.
That was a good catch.
Yeah, well planned.
Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about some past experiences, some history of the brands, where do you think the industry is going?
That's I think a pretty tough question. When you look at, you don't have to go back too far, like even at just a couple of years. And there was a lot of things that were pushing the industry towards a no dealership model. You look at certainly what Tesla is doing, and some of the outlet kind of models, and Genesis is doing a kind of a hybrid version of that right now. But figuring out how to service vehicles is certainly one thing, and I think there is still a really big part of this business that people want to engage with other people, and you want to feel like you have that person in the car business that you have a relationship with, and if we can continue to to provide those moments and to wow people, these things are still, and I mean, we're seeing it now, the complexity of these machines. Some people get it, right out of the box. Most people don't. Most people, it is a process to get them to understand everything that's in these vehicles, and to make sure that they get it, and that all of the stuff is explained properly to them, and that they know what happens after the service, and that they're going to be taken care of, and then just to have a connection with people. It's tough to do out of a kind of a vending machine based model.
I think that's so funny, because you see the top performers in the industry do more than just sell the car. They do some relationship management, right? Mm-hmm. They do some vehicle management, let's call it, like the actual mechanics of the car.
Yeah, 100%.
But then also the asset part of it, I think is always interesting. You see people give advice to their guests about when to trade in, how to future-proof their purchase, things like that.
Yeah.
And I remember, I'll never forget the day that we had to send everybody home. And we were sitting in this room. Yeah. And we were trying to figure out like what's going to happen. And then a bulletin came out, and we were sending people home that minute. Like, everybody had to pack their stuff and leave for COVID during that shutdown. And a couple of us stayed in the building, myself, you, and a few others included. And I remember, like, I'm a pretty optimistic person, but I remember being like, oh, what is this going to look like when we open back up?
Yeah, we might never come back.
Yeah, like and I remember people were looking up to us about that too. Like, the sales team were like worried, and we saw some amazing innovations come out of that.
Yep.
Like using video share screen. And I remember some of the first like feedback I got for that was, some big names in like Toronto and some really corporate people trying to buy a car. So we did it all over video, and they were like super impressed. And I was like, you're like the CEO of a huge company. How are you impressed by me doing this? Like but it really stuck true. And I think anybody looking at getting into it should still remember how powerful that can be. And then when we opened back up, and there was a little bit of thirst for human interaction again. And then I realized, dealers aren't going anywhere. In fact, we've increased our staff since then. Yeah,
we have. And I think that's a great point. And I have a lot of faith in, the messaging from Toyota and Lexus corporately is along that same line. Like it's a guest experience that's dealer delivered, both on the sales side and the after sales side. Because I think the car business has spent 100 years making this business too complex for the average person to understand. And that was 100%, on purpose. But now it's to the point where, trying to get people to understand, not like you said, the transaction side of it, and knowing, the ins and outs of leasing and financing and the multiple security deposits and, the best way to reduce those payments or to fit it to your schedule, to your lifestyle, sorting through that on your own. Like, I'm pretty confident that most people have a lot better things to do with their time than try to sort through that. And so you have to have somebody that you trust, and you don't kind of build those good, strong, solid foundational relationships every time we talk to a guest. But I think, like you said, the good ones do it more often than not. And then, you start to build it again through after sales and making sure that their vehicle's getting the care that it needs. And, if it doesn't need it, then, you're not selling it to them. And when you can do that, then those next interactions, they become faster and easier and both for us and for the guests. So,
and there's a couple things there that I forget to talk about, but even thinking about Service Connect and how that made it so convenient for the consumer and the dealer to connect when the time is right. And for those of you that don't know, Service Connect is a remote system, I guess you could call it, where the vehicle kind of tells the dealership, hey, something's up or it's time, give me a call. And it's almost like the dealership and the car are talking before the guest and the dealership are talking for things like service. And I think it just streamlined making sure the car is maintained well or making sure that relationship is managed. Yeah. I think, innovations like that, all it did was create a warmer handshake, if anything.
Yeah, I think so. And add convenience to the, to our guest world, right? I had, I got a text from a friend of mine just maybe last week and was like, man, your team is really on the ball. It was, just a matter of minutes before, my maintenance light, my reminder came on before you were on the phone to me booking my appointment, so she didn't have to worry about, going home or forgetting about it or seeing it tomorrow and then seeing it the next day and, not finding time to make the phone call. No, it was already made. The appointment was booked. Yeah. Done and done. And, those are the things, we all have to maintain these machines, whether you're buying them out of a factory direct model or not, they all are going to need work over time. So to make that as convenient as possible is a pretty big deal. So
it reminds me of like a sci-fi movie where, like your fridge is empty, so the grocery store just sends you the food you need. That's what I think of when it comes to like that Service Connect.
Yeah. Does that happen in sci-fi?
Well, I don't know.
What kind of boring sci-fi movies you're watching?
I need that in my life.
I don't know if I've ever paid attention to their grocery getting habits in the sci-fi movies.
Well, that's because your fridge is full, Mark.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's talk about EVs. Are you an EV guy?
I want to be. Yeah, okay. I do.
What's pushing you towards it? What's holding you back, I would say?
Pushing me towards it, I think it's the right thing to do for our planet. I think that, personally, I think that it being or having the ability to reduce our carbon footprint or reduce our emissions, every step that we can take towards that, we should. I just think from an infrastructure perspective, it's not there yet. It's a little bit limiting. There are adjustments that have to be made from a lifestyle perspective. And, some of those things, I don't know if I'm ready or willing to make those jumps. But all progress, it's change. It's something that you've got to, if we could make it better by doing the same things, we wouldn't be in the predicament that we're in. So something's got to give, something's got to change. I think it's a great option, but I also don't think it's the only option, when it comes to renewable or kind of greenhouse gas reducing technology. And again, that's another thing that I love about Toyota and Lexus is that their eggs aren't all in one basket, right? They're looking at the hydrogen, they're looking at, alternative fuels. So, I love the spirit of EV. I love that is a direction that the whole industry is going. But I'm also, I'd like to see it, let's see the rest of it play out, see what happens. Maybe it's not the the right solution. Maybe there's something else out there. And if we kind of pigeonhole ourselves too much, I worry that, we're not going to give the rest of the world or the rest of the options out there a fair shake.
And talk about a pivot moment. Like a couple years ago, everybody was talking EV. And I remember
it was so annoying.
It was so annoying because we would have to say, no, we don't have one.
Nope.
We have hybrids. And we saw all these brands quickly panic and pivot to go totally EV focused, some within our umbrella here. And then all of a sudden the Canadian market for EVs slowed. And that bell curve sort of happened, and then they had all these cars. But I always thought it was really interesting when Lexus pointed out that they could make, it was something like 30 hybrids for the battery resources of
90.
Not 90. It was 90 hybrids.
There's 90, 10, 1. So 90 hybrids or 10 plug-ins or one BEV.
Full BEV with the same resources. So anybody that was worried about, the impact on the planet for those resources, which is a real thing, realizing that you can get a hybrid that's going to, give you great fuel economy and also, be able to spread that out a little bit more. Have you driven many BEVs?
No, I haven't actually. I've only been behind the wheel of a couple of them, and I'm looking forward. We've got the RZ and the BZ coming in the Toyota world to the rest of Canada, as opposed to just BC and Quebec. So, that's super exciting. I'm really looking forward to being able to get behind the wheel and live with these things for a little bit. Kind of get a feel for what the challenges really are and what the solutions to those challenges are, right?
Yeah.
You can get around anything you want. It's just a matter of how bad you want to.
Yeah. And it's interesting how the driving experience is going to change a little bit. Like we saw Mercedes started to really put a focus on the audio sounds that car is going to have. And they had will.i.am designing some of the sounds the car makes as you drive it, which I thought was super interesting. And that was one thing that I heard for the feedback for the Lexus RZ was experience-wise, the driver could actually hear the audio better because there's no vibration from the transmission. There's no harmonic anything else except for the music. And I was like, that's actually pretty cool. Yeah. To think of it as not just like, oh, I missed my exhaust. No, you can hear music better. Like, how could anybody argue with that?
Yeah, I think it's just one of those little unforeseen things that if you don't get the opportunity to, to kind of live with it a little bit, you forget about, right? Or you don't realize that benefit. So, it's hard to see that granularly without a real experience.
I'm on the fence as well. I think in my head, I don't think of it as like the be all end all solution. I think it's really fun. Like I've been in some fun EVs. We did a shoot for Performance Auto Group and we got to try out and sort of see all of the EVs that we had. And one of them had so much horsepower that it felt like you were getting rear-ended when you got on the highway. And I remember I went in my buddy George's, he has a Plaid Tesla. And when he stepped on the gas, all you could hear was everybody's inhale because like all of us got pushed back in our seat and you could just hear like the inhale of
ribs
bending. But I still am holding on to like, I'm an engine and motors guy by all means, and driving the RX 450h Plus the first time. And we did a video on that vehicle and you can see in the video, my candid feedback of like being like, oh, this is actually pretty great because it had that power of a full EV and the smooth power delivery. But we felt the gas engine kick on eventually because we didn't have to worry about range. We could just go to boot around. Yeah. So I'm excited to see how it would fit into my life, the new Lexus RZ. Well, I would have to learn a lot more about plugging cycles and stuff like that. But I also heard Matt, one of our Lexus reps, say it's kind of just like plugging in your phone where you just like, if you're in a room with a charger, you're just going to plug in your phone and the car is the same way. So that should be interesting enough. Yeah.
I think that was kind of, you pointed out that feedback when we were in Toronto the other day that, just take the little chunks, and it'll be enough to get you home and then you recharge it when you get there. Yeah. And, instead of the mentality that we've always had with gas, you stop and you fill up and then you go, but it's always that usually 0 to full instead of just chunk away at it, get yourself home and then move on to the next day.
And that's what they say, like the next couple of years for EV, we'll see the biggest change because now we have more focus on it. There's more money going into it. So things like range, I mean, it's probably going to get to a point you don't even have to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're already seeing it evolve at a pretty rapid pace. When you think about just the short time that RZ and BZ have been launching or have launched, and the batteries are already getting an upgrade, the charging's already getting an upgrade. Those are things that they can move. I think with the way these platforms are designed, they can move at pretty quick. Instead of having to rework engine mounts or rework the balancing, all that kind of stuff. They can rejig, and with the hopefully the solid state coming and all that kind of stuff. I think it will move pretty quick, which is exciting.
And the design language is changing is pretty cool too. I did this public presentation about EVs to a group of older gentlemen, and when I showed them a Cybertruck, they were like adjusting their glasses. They were like, "What is that? Is that a real vehicle?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's, you guys don't know, like that's all over the internet right now." And they were like, it's like some of them were just like, "I didn't think I would see this day."
Yeah, it is something else. And
it is.
Those things are, you're seeing them more and more on the road here now. Obviously we're a little bit behind what's happening south of the border. But yeah, they're wild. And, they are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Not cheap vehicles, that's for sure. I don't know if you've priced one out, but.
No, I can only imagine though. Yeah.
Yeah, super cool. And I mean, it's great. Again, I applaud what Tesla's done for that, for the automotive industry as a whole. And the Cybertruck is a great example of just making it, you just can't ignore it.
Yeah. Making it cool, kind of.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, the car business has always done that. You can go back, to each successive generation, and there's always that car that comes on the scene and it's new and it's fresh and the lines are crazy. Yeah. Or crazy for the time. And it just grabs people's attention. People fall in love with them, and that visceral kind of emotional reaction that cars can pull out of people. Yeah. It's kind of fun.
It is wild. I always think about the emotional part of cars and the purchase. If it wasn't for that, I mean, who would justify spending all this money? Yeah. But even when I look in my garage and I see my old 2014 Lexus, it is emotional. Like I feel it and I'm like, I love that car. Yeah. And it's not like I've even had it long enough to have like a ton of memories and stuff in it. I just love everything about it. It is like that emotional thing. Yeah. So what is your dream car? I know you're really logical minded. So
yeah.
Do you have a car that does that? Like emotionally?
Pretty boring overall. I don't get, for as long as I've been doing this, I don't get that worked up about cars too often. I think probably as close as I've gotten, I worked for General Motors for a long time, and that I used to have a lot of fun ordering Corvettes, doing different things. And they had a Corvette Grand Sport. I think it was just a special edition. Can't remember what it was called, but it was like a dark gray outside with a blue interior, and that one was the one that I thought one day. So that was kind of that car for me. But I'm also been doing this for such a long time now. I'm like, yeah, but it's not a new Corvette. Yeah. It's not the C8 or it's not the Z06. So I mean, it was cool, but I don't know if I could have that attachment to something that wasn't the latest and greatest anymore. Yeah, especially if it's like 1 year old, that would be the trickiest. Is like buying one today, and then next year we get trained on the new exciting thing, and you're like, I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't. I'm way too much of a snob. What about within the brand? What's your? Ooh, what the GX, I'm just in love with driving the truck. Although I've only really got to drive it. I did have taken one home now, but otherwise I got to drive one in the Grape and Wine Parade here. So it wasn't exactly the best test drive, but I mean that 3.5 liter twin turbo, the response is great, but the presence and the design of that truck is super cool to me. I love it. You put it beside anything and it stands out. And it's capable. Yeah. Like when we did the training, I know you didn't get to go to it. I did get to see it off-road in Vegas.
Yeah.
At the dealer meeting, and what they can do is
unbelievable, and do it like comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
Like it makes me want to have a more exciting personal life where I could like do
the
some
motorcycles and the
the
supers aren't enough for you.
Yeah, I didn't say it wasn't exciting. I said more than already right now. If I could fit that, if I could just
squeeze it in
somehow, I would think that the GX would be my full-time bro truck, or like my lifestyle truck.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think the LC and the LS do that emotional thing for me, where I'm like, oh, I could just look at that car from a mile away and just stare at it.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah, the LS is right up there. I've always been a big sedan kind of a fella. I'm a big fat guy, having the big, the comfortable seat and the nice wide cabin, and then you look at like an LS 500, and to do it with that much style, is something. And again, I mean, same motor or similar motor to what's in GX, and the response of that vehicle is, the drive of it is just second to none, and as far as anything that I've experienced. So
okay, so we've been up here for a while, so we'll kind of wrap things up here. I'm sure you're sick of hearing my voice, like anybody else that does these video projects with me.
Yep.
So last question is, why did you back this YouTube project that we have? Because without your sort of blessing on it, it wouldn't have happened.
So it's funny because I'm not a social media person. Obviously, I'm old, and I don't even use. Friends of mine are all over. They use YouTube for everything. I don't. I don't know. I'm not that interesting, or not that interested, I guess. I don't know. But the ability to engage with people, and the ability to for us to provide a service for a mass group of people. Again, in a business where we know we live every day how many questions people have, and we have the example or the benefit of getting a lot of these cars and being able to gain the intimate knowledge of these cars. And I think what attracted me to it was just being able to magnify that out to a pretty huge audience, and to your credit, and certainly to the people that help put this on. You guys have done a great job at curating interesting and value-added content for people, and doing it in at least a quasi interesting way. People engage with you for whatever reason, and that really does come through. And I've been very impressed with what comes, pardon me, the community, or the sense of community that's developing through this. And that was something, in the initial research that we were doing for this project that I didn't think would be there. And, some of the people that we talked to in the research that we did said, no, that this is a real thing. And I think you've done a great job, again, kind of curating that and developing it, and it's paying off quite well. So
that part's been my favorite. I thought it was going to be, we're just going to be a source for information, but some of the relationships and that community backing, like watching someone come into the dealership and like being like, wow, this is where they film. I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, or all the feedback I get from people just coming in to buy a car and saying, I did it because your video is amazing. But even one step further, I had a gentleman call me a couple weeks ago, was American Thanksgiving, and he was in Reno, Nevada, and his Lexus was acting up, and he needed someone to turn to. And he said, I'll turn to Dustin. He's in Canada. They're open today. And he's watched all the videos. And I remember being like, wow, like we forget the impact that we have outside of these walls. And being a destination for that has been really cool. And we're only a couple years into it. So
yeah. Well, and it's that you can have, and you've I know you've talked to had a talk for Lexus Canada at our managers conference, and we talked about it ahead of time, and the decision was kind of open the floodgates, tell them everything. Yeah. Go ahead, because the execution is the hard part, right? Doing it every day. And again, what you guys do, from the content creation to the, staying late and shooting and taking the time, doing the research. go ahead. Here,
Yeah.
here's the keys.
Yeah.
But the chances that, and I mean, you can see if you search it, you just don't see other dealerships out there in the space, at least doing it on a sustained level. You know, you might see a couple of videos, and you know, but it's a hard thing to stick to, and you know, but as that wheel starts to turn, you know, as that rock starts to roll, it can really gain some momentum, and I think that's what you're seeing as on our channel, and credit to you for doing that hard work for the amount of time that you've done it, to the degree or level of quality that you've done it. So again, not to
keep going. Yeah, this is good.
I'm done now.
All right. And to the viewers, like, it's cool that they watch and subscribe and
100%.
that sort of thing. So, well, that seems like a good place to finish off. So big thank you to Mark for agreeing to do this for me late in the night like this.
No, you're very welcome. I'd say anytime, but I wouldn't mean it at all. So,
so don't lie. We don't lie to the viewers.
No, we won't lie. No.
So thank you for watching. Please make sure you hit like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you think of this video and if we should do more videos like this, because we know that there's many people that I could probably convince to do this. So
yeah, I'm sure there'd be a lineup.
Perfect. I'll see you in the next video.